Hello, hello. Welcome to Reading Time. My name's Time, and today we're reading Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Let's get to reading. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson is a classic adventure tale all about piracy and finding buried treasure and all of that good stuff that we now acquaint with any classic pirate story. Jim Hawkins, the protagonist of the story, finds himself as the cabin boy on the Hispaniola, a ship that is set to find the treasure of a now dead pirate. Along the way, he discovers that some of his fellow crew members are in fact pirates who intend to steal the treasure for themselves. I really enjoyed this story. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. The only reason I'm not giving it 5 out of 5 stars is that I did have a hard time getting through the book itself, but I'll go into that a little bit more later. Before I go into why I'm giving it a 4-star rating more in depth, I would like to recommend this to middle school readers, especially around 5th through 8th grade. I think would be the best fit for this particular story. I think readers of that age range would be able to enjoy the story for its adventure, but also would be able to understand the thematic elements of the plot. There are a few elements of content to be aware of. First of all, violence is seen throughout the book. At the beginning of the novel, a pirate is run down by a horse and is trampled to death. We also have many instances of different sorts of fights, gunfights and sword fights between pirates and between other members of the crew. Our protagonist even is involved in some of these fights and does end up killing one of the pirates. Another thing to be aware of in this book is substance usage. A lot of the pirates drink alcohol to the point of drunkenness, and we do have one character who actually dies of a stroke that is put on from his rampant alcoholism. As I said earlier, I generally enjoyed this book. There are a lot of things that we think about when it comes to piracy and pirates nowadays that were influenced by this book. For example, if you picture pirates as being characters with peg legs and parrots, that is very reminiscent of Long John Silver, one of the characters in the book. Even the idea of treasure maps and X marks the spot is something that we can see in this book. And Robert Louis Stevenson even invented things like the black spot, which, if you're familiar with Pirates of the Caribbean, is something that's present in that series and is actually something that Stevenson just made up for his story. Now, as to why I'm not giving it 5 stars. I had a difficult time getting through this book, and part of that may have just been that there's a lot going on in life right now, and so it's been hard to just sit down and read. Part of it may have been the fact that this is an older book out of the texts that I've read so far, and so some of the language is a little bit more archaic and a little bit harder to just sit down and read and get through. But for whatever reason, I had a hard time getting through it. And so I actually ended up turning to an audiobook version of the story in order to finish listening/reading it, and in order to have this video prepared in time. On the topic of audiobooks, I actually really enjoy audiobooks as a format. As you can see behind me, I also enjoy physical books. I have quite a few of them, and I have many that you probably can't even quite see or are elsewhere in my house. But I also thoroughly enjoy listening to audiobooks, and I would actually say that audiobooks are what got me back into loving reading. As a kid and growing up, I really enjoyed reading. It was what I did in my spare time. I remember clearly moments when it would just be me and my family sitting in a room together, each of us reading our own individual books, and that was great. I loved that. And as I got older, I continued to read. I continued to read different things and explore different genres. But at some point, reading just wasn't as enjoyable. Part of that may have been having reading as a required thing in high school, or just not having the time to sit down and read. I know in more recent years for me, I've actually felt a little guilty about reading because it doesn't feel like a fruitful activity sometimes. It feels like if I'm reading, then I'm not doing something else that would be more productive or that would be a better use of my time. And audiobooks is really what has made reading more enjoyable for me again. Obviously, for this channel, I read physical books regularly, but I also always have an audiobook that I'm listening to as something that I can do while I'm doing chores around the house or something I can listen to while driving. I really don't listen to music much anymore because I'm frequently so sucked into one story or another. And I think sometimes audiobooks don't get the credit that they deserve, or they receive a little bit of flack as something that is less than reading a physical book. And I don't think this should be the case. There are many younger readers out there who don't enjoy reading, whether they have difficulty with reading because of dyslexia or because of it being in a different language from their native language, or any number of other things. They don't enjoy reading. Or maybe they are strong readers and it's just not something they enjoy doing. Audiobooks are an amazing way to increase reader interest or to help solidify reading skills. There are some skills that can only really be done by reading a physical book, such as word recognition. However, a lot of the skills that we look for when it comes to reading a book, such as reading comprehension, making sure you understand what has been read, understand the story, vocabulary, literary analysis, these are things that can be done even if you're not reading the book physically, if you're just listening to the story. Recent studies have found that there's not a strong difference between reading a book and understanding what has been read and being able to analyze it and listening to that same book. Now, what does that mean for teaching a book? I'm not saying that audiobooks should take over all literary consumption, because there are benefits from reading daily, even if you're reading something as simple as the back of a cereal box or a billboard on the side of the road or a magazine. But I do think that audiobooks can help fill in the gaps for readers that maybe struggle with traditional reading, or it can help solidify word recognition by having your readers read the physical book while listening to the audiobook. So maybe a 4 out of 5 star review isn't fair to the book itself, as listening to the book did actually help me quite a bit. But the book as it stood by itself, reading the physical copy, 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed the story. It was a good one. I'm not much of one for adventure stories in general, though, so that might also be why I'm not willing to overlook my difficulty of getting through the book itself. Now, I do have the poster scratched off. It's right next to Fantastic Mr. Fox. We have a treasure map with a red X. Have you read Treasure Island before? Is it one that you enjoy? What are your thoughts on audiobooks? Do you regularly listen to audiobooks? Do you prefer reading physical books or reading ebooks? If you would like to follow along with this reading challenge or help support my page, please feel free to follow me on social media on either Facebook or Instagram. And if you like my videos, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. It does help. Now, as always, I hope that you have a marvelous week and a wonderful read.